in the very tiny, minuscule Umbrian Borgo, or little hill town of about 1,000 people, Giove. Giove in English would be Jupiter. And in fact, the Castello, also called Palazzo Mattei, is probably built on site of a temple, the ancient temple dedicated to the god Giove, Zeus for the Greeks, Jupiter in the English language. And this was a very contested lookout point, this little town, fought over in battles between Orvieto and Amelia, Todi involved too, all wanting to have domination of what was a medieval fortification on site of the present-day Castello. We have a lot of noise going on. Up there is the crane, the national bird of Italy. Restoration is going on in the Castello. It is 5,000 square meters with 365 windows, one for each day of the year. It's a vast edifice. It was under possession of the Farneses in the 16th century. Important painters frescoed in here, including Veronese, Domenichino, and these painters frescoed here 16th, early 17th century. This was bought at auction at Asta for 900,000 euro, I believe in 2015. It's now under restoration. And we're going to see in a second what was the wine cellar, olive oil cellar of the castle. The Mattei family, the noble Roman family that possessed this castle from 1500 until the 1800s, had about, I believe Pino told me, 50 farms or land holdings in the area, and produced olive oil, wine, and so forth, and all of it transformed into, vineyards, olive groves, and the goods, that is the olives, and wines were transformed in the adjacent cellar. We have a lot of background music, which is not symphony, because there are workers still working here on restoration. It's nearly 5 o'clock. Let's look across the street at what was the cantina, or the cellar area, where the agricultural crops were turned into the goodness of things like olive oil, wine, and so forth. This is being restored by my husband Pino's crew, Trexa Costruzione. Let's ask Pino to tell us about this structure he's restoring. Pino, anticamente che cos'era questo edificio?
Questo edificio era la cantina dei conti Mattei, che avevano nella zona 56 poderi e producevano uva per il vino, olive per l'olio e granaglie, tipo grano, cereali in genere.
So this was the cellar of the Conti Maffei, who had 56 land holdings in the area, and produced all kinds of grains, wheat, oats, barley, which were transformed into animal fields, and of course the wheat into bread. And they produced grapes for their wine, and they had olive trees for the production of their olive oil. And since they were living in that castle next door of 5,000 square meters and 3 floors and beautifully frescoed, you could imagine the number of people they would have fed at evening banquets and just their servants. Poi Pino, siccome I conti Mattei avevano un enorme palazzo, dicevo, di 5.000 metri quadri, immagino che avevano da far da mangiare a molte persone.
Sì, c'erano sia personale addetta all'amministrazione, alla manutenzione, al mantenimento, poi c'avevano tutti i coloni per i 56 poderi, che erano loro che pensavano alla coltivazione della terra, alle semine, ai raccolti, eccetera.
And I didn't even think of that. Pino said, yes, besides all the servants.
Una grande azienda agricola.
He said, besides all the servants in the palace, all the farm people who worked the land on their 56 farms had to be fed as well. Allora Pino, da quanti anni lavori qui o da quanti mesi?
Qui il lavoro è stato iniziato l'anno scorso a maggio. E poi c'è stata un'interruzione tra marzo e maggio di quest'anno per mancanza di materiale, approvvigionamento dei materiali che ritardavano. Abbiamo ripreso a maggio i lavori e abbiamo completato la nuova costruzione.
Grazie. Well, they started a year ago in May, but then March to May, they were stopped for lack of materials. And that's probably due to the Ukraine war, which has tremendously raised our gas prices since our gas comes from Russia. And many people lament the lack of arrival of materials coming in. Pino, scusami, ma secondo te era anche dovuto alla guerra in Ucraina che non arrivavano i materiali, no?
Da aspettare per la consegna che non poteva essere.
They ordered the materials.
Nei tempi pensati.
They ordered materials, but they weren't arriving in time, so all work was halted. When do you expect to finish? Quando pensi di finire questo restauro? He hopes within the year. What will this become? Cosa diventerà questo bel edificio enorme?
Ancora i proprietari non hanno nessuna idea che destinazione d'uso avrà, perché pensano più che altro alla vendita, più che a un utilizzo, e quindi a un'attività o quant'altro.
Okay, the owners have not decided. They're probably thinking of selling it rather than doing anything with it. Pino, che è questa rete lungo il tetto qui che vedo?
Questi sono interventi strutturali di consolidamento. Questo sul soffitti serve per l'antisfondellamento delle volte.
Okay, these are protective structures to support the vault. Dopo verranno tolti.
No, non vanno tolti, questo ci va l'intonaco.
They will not be taken down.
Strutturale.
They're steel supports and they will then be plastered over. E questo palazzo è antisismico adesso, no?
Diciamo che rispetto a prima adesso c'ha una discreta resistenza sismica.
It should have a good resistance to seismic activity. Grazie Pino.
Prego, non c'è di che. È stato un piacere conoscerti.
A pleasure to meet me. We've only known each other for about 50 years. Grazie, sono 50 anni più o meno. Thank you, Pino. Pino has gone out now, and I'm still in this fascinating former huge wine cellar, olive oil cellar, which belonged to the counts who had the castle next door, the noble palace, Count Mattei. This was the room we were in before. And I looked at the end of this room, and there's quite something astounding. There's some stairs. And I'm not going down those stairs, but I looked over the stairs leading down, and what do I see below? All kinds of wine barrels, wine casks, bits and pieces. This was where, no doubt, the wine, after it was made, was stored. Another secret of Giove and the cantina, or the cellar, adjacent to the noble Palazzo Mattei, also called by those in Giove, il Castello. And here too, the bracing on the ceiling. One day to be plastered. This will be an extraordinary structure. And we'll soon be leaving Giove this evening. It's about 5 o'clock. And here we can see the heart of Giove, the cantina of the Palazzo Mattei, being restored by Pino's team, Trexa Costruzione. It flanks the church of Giove. You can see it a bit just past the trees, Santa Maria Assunta, and it's right across the street from the enormous castle, which is almost completely restored, the Castello Mattei, also called the Palazzo Ducale, a noble Roman family in possession of this magnificent palace from 1500 to 1800. And here we have Giove. The heart of Giove is the castle, the church, and the cantina, a Pino masterpiece. Well, it will be when it's finished.